everybody? Thruline Thursday. I am here, new location. Listen, I had people like, the volume's too low, bro, last week. It's too low. You're going to give me, it's an echo this week. You might give me something. I don't know. Has anyone of you complaining checked the fact we're in a pandemic right now and we're all trying to make do? Have you thought about that at all? Before you're like, can't do it, bro. It's too low. I can't even, not going to listen. Shut up, dude. I'm sorry, okay? I'll tell you this. I saw those comments. I put it on my computer. I could hear it fine. I don't know what you need from me. I don't know. But it's a fact. I mean, where do we even begin? You know what I mean? Where do we begin? That's where we began. I'm like always saying to my kids, they'll say stuff like, and then yesterday or tomorrow, can we begin with, and I'll be like, tomorrow, can we begin? And like always doing past and present with them. And they're so good about like listening, repeating. And it's so funny to like constantly be like, well, hold on a second. Think of it like this. This is this. This is this. And they're like sponges. They stare, they listen, they repeat. So much fun. The other day, yesterday, I was on a little bike ride around the block with my son before like we go in for bedtime. And like my son and daughter have been talking about how they want a new house. They want a second floor on a house. And I want to be like, first of all, we've said to them for the last month, like, you're not getting a new house. I don't know where this is coming from. We're not getting a new house. First of all, this isn't even our house. We would be getting a house. Like we can't even like, yes, new situation. It's not happening. We just keep telling them that over. There's no new house coming. We don't want to stunt them. You know what I mean? Their desires. But like, so we're on a bike ride the other day and my son goes, Dad, can I tell you my dream house? And I go, yeah, buddy, go ahead. And he goes, it's got 6 rooms. And I was just like, whoa, we're not really aiming that high. He doesn't know. And he goes, I want a room just for all of our books. And I go, like a library? He goes, yeah, like a library. I'm like, all right, I like that. And he goes, and then my room, and then a room for all of our toys. And I go, okay. And then River gets her own room. I go, okay. And he goes, and a dining room. And I was like, all right, do you know how many rooms that is? He's like, no, how many? I go, that's 5, dude. That means you got one more room. And you're going to need a kitchen. I just got to be straight. You're going to need a kitchen. And it was just so funny. But he said the most amazing thing to me. We start going, so we get to the end of the street and we take a turn, and he goes, Dad, do you know that my brain tells me that we already have that house, and that way I don't have to ask you for it? And I was just like, holy, that's like some Tim Robbins shit right there. It was just like the most amazing thing that kid has not ever said. He says amazing stuff all the time, but it was just like the most beautiful and just an amazing interpretation of what he's thinking. You know what I mean? Like, how often do we have thoughts as adults that we don't even know how to process into like what we're trying to communicate? And he just, as plainly as you could, said that his brain tells him stuff. Now, may he have split personality? Sure. If you're just finding this podcast, it's the Thruline. I'm Jay Larson. I'm glad you're here with me. My Instagram is Jay Larson Comedy. My Facebook is Comedian Jay Larson. And then my website is Jay Larson Comedy. I feel like, you guys tell me, this whole pandemic has put us all in like some sort of a reset. You know, whether you like it or not, your life is reset. Whether you have been laid off, like parts of my family, my wife, and you're going to have to either go back to that job or find a new job, and you reset that way. If you decided to start taking a look at your expenses like we did, and you like reset the way you're spending money, something we did, we were like, we need to completely change this. We cannot be spending on this and this. We just can't. Makes no sense. Whether it's the idea of like, because you can't be around people and you're like, oh man, I am going to make sure that I'm around people. So yesterday was Cinco de Mayo. 2 days ago for you guys, and we did a little like socially distant Cinco de Mayo party on our front yard, and four of our neighbors, like everyone takes a corner of the yard, and then we set up a table over here, and everyone just goes individually. We put out individual spoons for each family. You reused your spoon, like to serve, and like one of our neighbors was just like really like telling us like, man, I wish I could hug you guys right now. Like it's been 2 months now. And it's like, I think a lot of us are like, man, like, I mean, we did like 3 or 4 years ago, I did a happy hour on our lawn, like on a Friday night. And we all said like, yeah, let's start doing this. But we never did. We did it that one time. And I think now neighbors are the only people you can really see right now. Like you can go visit a friend, but like your neighbors are right there. So you see them more often. And, that might be the reset that some people are talking about. Like, no, you know what? When this thing's over, I know I have one of my buddies that I love to death. We golf a lot together. And every year he goes on this golf trip with his buds, and he invites me every year. And I've never gone once. It's always one reason or the other why I'm not going. And I've just decided, I'm like, you know what? Fuck that. Whether I'm going on this one with him or I'm creating one with him and I'm going on one this year. I've just always wanted to, you know what I mean? I've gone on them where I'm working, where like you perform and then you play in the tournament, and I'm just like, no. I want to just go with friends and play 36 holes each day with a nice lunch in between and have nowhere else to go. I feel like since my kids have been born, like, well, I gotta like always, I don't want to miss any moment with them. I always want to be around them, and I've just realized I'm like, you know what? They're there. They love me, and I need to also continue to grow as a person with friends and different people in my community so that I can continue to be like, I don't know, like growing for them as well. So, and I've been debating whether or not to tell you guys this, but I'm going to, because I think with this reset becomes change. I'm going to end this podcast. And God, that sounds so weird to say, because I love having this outlet and reach and communication with all of you that are listening, and that all of you that participate, and all of you that like appreciate and care about this point of view that I put out there. So I'm going to go through the end of May. So first things first, if you have things you want me to discuss over the rest these next 4 episodes, got to hit me up. You got to hit me up on social, on Instagram, on Facebook, or my email, holidaybakeryproductions@gmail.com. And I think part of it was, well, first of all, I just like, I really enjoy it, but I don't feel like I prepare enough for what you would expect from something that you're going to devote an hour to every week. I love the things that I try to talk about, or the perspective that I want to have on things, but I keep finding that to find the subject matter needs a little more research. And since I've been on this writing job and with the pandemic and like just life, I just looked at it. I'm like, oh, I'm not giving it everything that it would need to be as great as it could be. And then I looked at it and I'm like, well, what are we actually doing here each week? And I just couldn't find. I just felt like you guys deserve better, and I could be making a better product, and I'm just not. And I like the concept, or it's changed a little bit for those of you who've been here for the long haul. It started out one way, and I changed it. And for me, I just need a little break. I need a little break to reassess like where I'm putting my energy in my life, because like I said, with this pandemic, it's like really everything's kind of like, whoa, where are you at? Where are you at in your career, in your life, with your family? And for me, I was like, I got to put more energy into some of this other stuff. Like with stand-up is gone right now for me, and everyone else who does stand-up. I mean, I did a Zoom stand-up show the other day. It wasn't terrible. It was actually really fun. But I don't see it as like a monetary existence. It's not going to be something that continues monetarily for me. Who knows? Who knows when it's going to come back or to what capacity? But I've been writing on this show. I think I've told you guys about. Anyway, bottom line is, I'm not going away forever at all. I have all my social media, which if you don't follow me there, that is how you will find out when the next podcast is coming. Because if you like this podcast and you like my stand-up and you've been one of the people that shares or comments or tells people about, thank you from the bottom of my heart. It means a lot to me. And the only way when I do start another podcast, which I will, and hopefully it's going to be a little more, I'll have it a little more put together. I just feel like for right now, like I need a little bit of a break to focus on where I'm taking my life, my career, my family from this pandemic. And in order to do that, I need to make sure that, first of all, do I have the time to do this? Yeah, I have the time. Am I making money on it? No, I'm not. I'm not making any money. So you have to look at the things you're putting time into, right? So what are you putting time into? And then is it giving you anything back? If anything, it gives me back this satisfaction that I have you all that are listening. I'm able to talk about things that I like. But I look at it and I'm like, well, if I have to assess where my family's at, and I'm the one who's, taking care of us right now, and not knowing when this is going to end or how it's going to look when it's over, I have to just put my energy where it's going to be best served. So that's kind of what I'm doing. And I'm sure we're all doing that in certain capacities. And I hope I'm not abandoning you guys. I feel like it. I feel like it. And I've been abandoned myself in the past. So, I get it. But I'm very appreciative. And that's why that's why I feel like I'm giving you guys enough time to, if there's anything you want me to talk about, I will. Just hit me up. And please continue to follow me on social media, and I will make posts about it. And otherwise, you can go on my website. I believe there's a mailing list. If you're like, listen, I don't do social media, bro. I totally get that. I wouldn't do it if I didn't have to. Then go and just email me. Say, hey, put me on your emailing list. Because I have one. I just don't use it. Because why? Because I'm a fucking idiot. I'm antiquated in a lot of regards. You know what I mean? I'm just like, nah, I'm just not going to do that. Nah, how do I do that? I just don't know how to, and it just overwhelms me. I saw the most antiquated thing. So the other day, it's over the weekend, pandemic, I see skywriting happening over our head. Skywriter. Who is still skywriting? I couldn't believe it. I was like, it's 2020. We're skywriting? First of all, what marketing or advertising team is like, are you guys ready for this? Who goes to their client and is like, you ready for this? What do we do every single day? And people check our email, and they're like, yeah, but that's not what we're going with. And they're like, what else? And people check Instagram. You thinking a social media kind of thing? Nope. And they're like, I don't know. What could it be? And they're like, you look up at the sky, don't you? And everyone in the room is probably like, yeah, I don't think so. Sometimes I live in a building. I park underneath. I drive to work. I don't have a sunroof. I park in a building, and I go. Who is still thinking skywriting is an adequate way to reach out to people? First of all, by the time you start your skywriting and then finish it, it's ineligible. You can't read it. You're just like, what does that say? No one has ever looked up at skywriting and been like, oh yeah, Coors Light. No one. No one has ever. You've looked up and be like, what's it say? Skywriting is the equivalent of someone who had a really cool vanity plate idea that's just way too long. You know what I mean? And you have to sound it out. That's what the equivalent of skywriting is. You look up and you're like, what is it? And then it drifts. If there's wind, it starts over one part of the city and ends down there. You might have, a letter over here, Coors, C, and then the T, in another city. And then I was thinking, first of all, whoever was in the plane skywriting was all over the map. The dude was all over the map. His Ks were jacked up, it looked like my kids are, they're learning to write. They're like, their letters. I'm like, who is this guy? And then I thought to myself, like, there isn't a full-time skywriter in the world. There is not one skywriter whose only gig is skywriting. Like, how else are you going to perfect it? How else are you going to be the best when you're not skywriting all the time? You can't be. And whatever point number this is, what other jobs do you think those skywriters are doing? What do you think a skywriter does? I bet he lays rat traps. You know what I mean? But not with the company. Not like a professional rodent guy. Because we have one, and he's unbelievable. He sets traps. We had an issue like 5 years ago. He still checks up on them. He's always cordial, nice, pro. Skywriter dudes, there's no full-time gig for them. Maybe they teach flying, but they're not certified. You know what I mean? Every now and then I pick up a skywriting job. And how much do you pay those guys? What are they doing? Who has the little blast-out thing? What is that? Do you ever watch a skywriter and think to yourself, how the fuck do they know where that letter ends? It's got to be a crazy skill set. Have you ever seen one that's like perfect? You're like, wow, that's unbelievable. How many people right now are like, dude, I haven't seen skywriting in about 15 years. That's exactly what I said when I saw it. And I was like, who is investing their money in this? That guy cleans gutters. You know what I mean? He's like, I clean gutters sometimes, I do skywriting. I paint houses. I'll paint houses. I live in a tree house, so, that guy lives in a tree house. Or like, some like on a boat, You're not a skywriter and have like a normal house. You like live on a boat. You skywrite. How do you even get into skywriting? People are like, you fly. Like, yeah, I fly. You want to skywrite? How do you even teach it? You know what I mean? There's no place to go to learn skywriting. No one's like, yeah, I could pick this up. Whoever is up there, no pun intended, they're winging it. They're winging it. Anyway, I thought it was, especially in the middle of a pandemic, I was like, who decided to just bring it old school again? Whose pitch was, everybody's home right now. Everyone's at home. They're probably outside. It's a nice day. It's a weekend. They're not at the beach. Beaches are closed, but they're in their yards. We're thinking skywriting. And then everyone in this like, do we know any skywriters? Like, it's not like an ad agency who like works with like a branding company or a graphics. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we want to do this commercial and we need these special graphics. Oh, I know a graphics guy. Who was in the meeting going, anybody know a skywriter? They don't have that guy on payroll. Who's worked with a skywriter before? Someone's like, well, I know a guy who can parachute. He knows. I don't know. Where are you even finding a skywriter? I got to tell you this, though. That would be a very dope. That would be dope. Like at parties, people are like, what do you do, dude? I'm like, I skywrite. I'm a skywriter. They're like, what the fuck? Are you like from a movie? Like Skywriter. Doesn't that sound like it would just be a movie title? The Last Skywriter. It's not writer, skywriter. I'm a skywriter, you know what I mean? I skywrite. I write in the sky with a plane, and I get this like toxic foam. I really this toxic cloud formula stuff. Like, is that like a thing you add onto your plane? How does it stay there? What is it? Are you just shooting clouds out? I have so many questions. And I don't think I'm going to get any answers. And you know what? That's the way I want it to be. Because the next time I probably see a skywriter is going to be in the fall when the pandemic comes back up. You know what I mean? When it comes back. And it's like, that's the only guy that can get up there. It's like, well, we can't shoot commercials and we can't go post billboards, but we can get one guy up in a plane because that guy's probably, any skywriter is immune to anything. What do you think? You think a skywriter's getting sick? No, he's not getting sick. That guy fucking, probably like filters old car oil and eats it, Like that's how he's surviving. Because he's a skywriter. I do want to mention this week if you've noticed. I don't know if you've noticed. I dyed my beard. My buddy was like, my beard is white down here. It's all white. My mustache, I love it. My wife hates it, but it's got great tone, great color. And this is white, right? And I just said to my buddy, I'm like, I think I'm going to dye my beard. He's like, what? What do you mean? I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to dye it. And he's like, everyone's going to notice it, right? And I was like, I don't think so. I think what's going to happen is people are going to see me and they're going to just be taken aback. They're going to be like, dude, you look different. What is it? Like, because I look younger. You know what I mean? I've had someone tell me, do you lose weight? I'm like, yeah, the pandemic. And I was just like, here's my philosophy. No one's going to see me for 2 months. And my buddy's like, yeah, but people see your social media posts. I'm like, yeah, but they're going to forget it. They're going to see me when this whole thing is over. And they're going to be like, dude, you look unbelievable. I'm like, I know. I'm like 36. And they're like, really? I'm like, you're 36? I'm like, I look it. But then the other day, I was like, look in the mirror, and my chest hair is all white. And I'm like, I'm going to have to trim, which is awesome because this week on the podcast, sponsoring us, excited, having Manscaped on. I don't know if you guys are down with Manscaped. Go to manscaped.com and check out what I'm talking about. Manscaped, these dudes, listen, men need to trim up. We got to trim our chests. We need to trim our junk. You know what I mean? I remember the first time I ever did it. You got to be careful because if you use regular hair clippers, there is just like, you're out of your mind. You're crazy. I've done it, and it's just like you're just playing with fire. And I'll tell you right now, if you make a snip down there, specifically at the bag, and I don't want to get graphic, but at the bag, it can get dicey quick. And I've been there. But Manscaped, this is the beauty of them. They're making products specifically for this. They redesigned the electric trimmer. The Manscaped engineered team spent 18 months perfecting the greatest ball hair trimmer ever created and just released the new and improved Lawnmower 3.0. Dude, that's hilarious. How great is your life when you work for a company that is making products for men's genital area to groom, and then you call it the lawnmower? That's a life worth living. The third generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade. You ever gone to the grocery store and seen a ceramic blade and you're like, I'm not getting that? Well, guess what? I'm not that guy. I've gotten it, and it's insane how sharp they can be. To help prevent manscaping accidents, millions of balls are about to be nick-free thanks to Manscaped's advanced skin-safe technology. Manscaping accidents are finally a thing of the past. One of the coolest features is the LED light, which illuminates grooming areas for a closer and more precise trimming. That's genius. And you might be like, oh, who's going to not see things? Get out of the shower in the morning. I'm not saying like 5 a.m. I'm saying like 10, and you're going to shave. You need the light on. You need the light on. I have a screwdriver. It's got a light on it. It's the greatest thing ever. Having that on there, such a great idea. It has the charging stand and a USB dock. So it's got everything you could need. And right now, because we're all need grooming right now, we're all in home, we're not getting out anywhere, you can get 20% off and free shipping with the code Thruline. Use code Thruline. Go to manscaped.com. Manscaped, manscaped.com. 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Code Thruline. Do yourself a favor and get over there and do that because, listen, you're going to have to trim up. Whether you manscape right now or you don't, it's a great time to start because you may think like, oh, dude, what do I need to manscape? Dude, I'll tell you exactly what you need to manscape. You need to get your life in control, and you need to get this thing dialed in because guess what? Not only is your hair probably out of control, your chest hair is, your bald hair is, you just got to do it. Let me see. Okay. You got to dial it in. So go to manscaped.com, code Thruline. And do yourself a favor and go get some products because it's nice to have them, that's for sure. Especially when you have something. Doesn't everything feel better when you have something that's specifically for a certain thing? You know what I mean? Like if you're really into cooking and you have stuff like an immersion blender, you don't use an immersion blender in your home like even weekly. Maybe that's like a maybe once every 2 month kind of deal. That's not a weekly or a monthly thing. But it's nice that you have it. You're like, oh yeah, when I make a soup, I got the immersion blender. Boom. When you got a trim, you could grab the clippers that you've done your kids' hair or you used to do flat tops for your soccer team. Whatever. Now you're like, fuck it, dude. That is specifically for my area. No one else touches it. You can trim your chest hair. You can get specific so you don't look like a clown. Do you know how many times I've done my chest, like trimmed my chest, and then been done and been like, God, what did I do? Like you can't go shirtless for like 5 days. You need something to come back. That's what you got to do. You know, when I was thinking about the fact that I was like gonna like take a time out from podcasting, I started thinking about like other times that I've like I'm very proud of the fact. You know what? I'm proud of this fact, but then at the same time I'm not. You know what I mean? That I've not quit a lot of things in my life. You know what I mean? Like I have not quit a lot of things. I'm like, no, I'm going to fulfill my commitment. And like I've never quit a job without 2 weeks notice except twice. And everyone's like, dude, you just said never. Now you're saying twice. That's a lot longer maybe than anyone. But like I'll never forget. So I used to work at this pizza place in high school, My Brother's Place Pizza. So anytime anyone would be like, "Oh, where do you work?" I'd be like, "Oh, My Brother's Place," and they'd be like, "Oh, what's your brother's place?" And I'm like, "No, that's the name of it." And it was a pizza place, right? Owned by 3 Irish guys: Tom, Emmett, and Gene. I've talked about them before. But I was always like a fucking idiot. Like I would never remember my schedule. My mother was never. I didn't have a ride, so I had to always walk to work. Which oh no, but it was like it was like a mile and a half, 2 miles maybe. I don't know. It's probably not even like maybe a mile and a half, maybe just a mile. I don't know. Maybe it's a mile as the crow flies. But I remember this one night. It was like a Wednesday night. I'm at home watching TV. It's like. It had to be like a winter month, but it wasn't like snowing or like a blizzard or anything. It was like a winter month because our shifts always started at 5 o'clock. You know, you worked like 5 to 10 on a weeknight, like, or 5 to 9, I think. Like, we'd always do like a Wednesday shift. I remember like in high school, my shifts were like Wednesday night, Saturday night, Sunday day. 3 shifts a week, 5 to 9. Saturday was 5 to 12. Sundays was 10 to 5. So I was working like 14, like 20 hours almost, for 18 hours, and like getting $4.25 an hour. We started at $4.25 an hour, but I didn't give a shit, man. Every time you got a paycheck, it felt unbelievable. Anyway, there was this like one Wednesday night, and my best friend Dave calls me. He's at Brother's Place. He works there too, and he's like, "Lawson, what are you doing?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You're fucking supposed to be working right now. You're on the schedule." I'm like, "Oh shit." And I'm like, now the last time I had fucked up like this and missed my shift or been late or forgot, my boss pretty much told me like, next time that happens, you're going to go, you're going to be gone, because it had happened a lot. I was an idiot. Now I had a mile and a half walk, right, to have this whole conversation with him. I was going to walk in, I was going to get fired. It was going to be over. And I remember I'm like walking the whole way and I'm like, God damn it, what am I going to say? Like he's going to fire me. Should I just quit? Blah, blah, blah. I didn't know I can't remember what I was thinking, but I remember walking in and I just walked up like there was like this L-shaped like counter. Like you'd order here and pay here. And then down here is like where the delivery guys would package up their things. And then there's like a back room with like a window and a doorway. And that's where like the subs were. That's what I used to work. We'd make chicken fingers fried, steak and cheese, Italian subs, all that kind of stuff. Tuna sub. I used to hate a tuna sub. Now I fucking love a tuna sub. Anyway, I walk in and my boss is there, one of the brothers. And Emmett was the nicest. Gene was the craziest. And then Tom was like, I don't know. He was whatevs. He was the youngest and like thought he was cool as shit. And you're like, dude, you're not that cool, bro. I mean, he was nice, but like Emmett was the bomb. He was the coolest cat. And Emmett's working. I walk in. I'm like, hey. And he's like, hey. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like sorry. And I'm like a high school kid. It's not like I'm me. I'm a high school kid. And he's like, what happened? I'm like, I don't know. I just forgot. And he's like, all right. And I'm like, so I guess I'm going to quit. And he was like, what? And I go, well, you said next time I'm late that I'm fired. And he's like, yeah, well, did I fire you? And I'm like, no. And he's like, well, and I go, and I just like, I don't know what happened, but I was so committed to the idea that I quit. And I was like, I guess I'm just going to quit, man. I was like so embarrassed. And then I just remember like walking home, like, I think I was crying. I was so mad at myself because I just didn't know how to I didn't know how to be forgiven. You know what I'm saying? Like, I felt like I deserved to be fired because he said like, I was almost holding him to his word when he was just like, nah, listen, like, whatever, like, and it, think of it like this. If it had been a crazy night and they were slammed and like orders got fucked up because there was no one to make them, I'm sure, yeah, he might have been like, you're done, dude. Like, you're done. But it was like I remember walking in, it wasn't crazy, and, I remember like the next day I told my mom, I'm like, yeah, I quit my job last night. And she's like, why? And I'm like, I started telling her and she was like, you got to call and ask for your job back. And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, you got to call and ask for your job. And I was like, how the hell talk about, my brain just works in a different way that when I'm sitting there and walking in late, I was like, oh yeah, you were going to fire me. So I know I'm fired. And they're like, no, we're not firing you. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'll just fire myself. So then for me to have to call, I felt so much shame anyway. Anyway, I called and I asked for my job back and they gave it back to me. And then they fired me. They fired me like, I don't know. It's still debatable whether they fired me or I quit like years later. And then they hired me. They opened another pizza place. They had one in our town and then 3 other ones in other surrounding towns. And this was in another town. They're like, hey, do you want to go work over there? And you can be like our head pizza guy or a second command. And I was like, yeah, sure. The other time I quit, I used to work at this restaurant that my friend, the K-Man, Coonsy, he got me this job, and it was this bar restaurant. So downstairs was this Italian restaurant with a bar seating area like for a bar, and then restaurant area. And then upstairs it was a bar and performance space. They did stand-up and music there. And the food was awesome. One of my favorite things about this place, they always did a family meal. Some restaurants will do like a family meal for staff, and it'll just be like simple pasta dish with a simple sauce and a salad. But like everyone goes in. So if you go in, if you're opening at 5:30, family meal goes out at like 5. So you get there at 4:30 and you start setting up. You go back, you get a dish, you bring it behind the bar, you're eating as you set up. I loved it. It was the best. But the guy who owned it was like super unorganized. The guy was just a fucking clown. Like, there's so many clowns in the restaurant world. I remember you just like, how is this guy fucking successful? Like, how are you even doing this? I used to get so annoyed because I looked at this bar. Now, was it crushing? No, by no means. Every now and then upstairs, they'd have a hot show and it would do really well. But like the downstairs bar, there was no scene happening. The restaurant wouldn't fill up. The food was it was awesome. It was awesome, but it just wouldn't fill up. And you looked at this guy and he was just like kind of like a player. He was like in his late 40s, but he was dating this young chick and he drove this old car, and when the restaurant would close down, he'd sit at the bar and have people there and they'd have drinks. They'd drink like Amaro and smoke cigarettes. And I used to get so annoyed. I'm like, I'm working here, but I'm not making money, and you're not taking it serious. And it's like, if we're going to do something, take it serious. Kind of like the theme of today's episode. And I walked in one day, and the bar was littered with glasses with cigarettes in leftover wine, like 4 cigarettes that had been put out. And I was like, what the fuck? This is insane. And like the hostess was also kind of like a manager, you know what I mean? Like she was tight with the owner, and I just looked at her and I'm like, yo, I'm done. And I didn't have another job. Like I needed a job, but I was like, I can't do this. I can't, like, what is going on? Like I was so jealous. I'm like, man, if I had this place, what I would do. But at the same time, I didn't even have, like, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. And she's like, what do you mean you're done? I'm like, I'm done. I am not going to work here anymore. I will set the bar up. I'll have it ready, but you need to call someone else in to work this shift because I am not working it. And so that was like at 4:30, and I had the bar dialed in. And then at 6, by 6, like I opened and everything. I was like, I don't care who takes the money from whatever I've made in the first half hour, whatever, I'm done. And I was like, all right, I'm out. And she's like, hold on, the owner is coming here. He wants to talk to you. I'm like, well, when's he going to be here? She's like, he said like 40 minutes. I'm like, all right, I'm going around the corner to have a drink. I was like, I needed a drink. Went, had a margie, some chips and guac probably. And then I walked back and he got there and he's like, so what's up? I'm like, you don't give a shit about this place, man. And I'm like, I can't walk in here every day to cigarettes out on the bar. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And this is a perfect example of what I didn't even think of this. I just thought of like, you know, what am I going to talk about today? And I started thinking about like, well, I should tell these guys that I'm going to end it in case you guys have things you want me to talk about. Or, dude, and by the way, if you guys have ideas for like, if you're like, man, you know what I wish Jay's podcast was? And don't say the crab feast, trust me. I know, the crab feast would be amazing. But like, if you have ideas of like, dude, have you ever thought of this? I would really love some input because sometimes for me, when it comes to like this kind of thing, I need to bounce ideas because I'm just like, there are times when it comes to like writing stuff or jokes, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what it is. But there's other times where I'm like, I don't know, you know, like it could be this, it could be that, I could do this, I could do that. Anyway. But that's what I'm realizing. Like that guy's restaurant was always open. It never like missed a day. You know, I've never missed an episode with you guys. There's been one day where in a year and a half where we had to get it up late because things happen. That place was always open. The food's always good. You know, I'm not saying my content is always great, but I'm always trying to find a take that relates to me. Sometimes they would close early. Yes. You know, I worked at this bar in New York and it was supposed to be open till 4 on weeknights too. But it was down next to West Side Highway across from the river, right? So it's not like it's like in this, you have to go find it. And we'd be open till 4 and you're there on a Wednesday night working till 4. You go 8 to 4. That was your shift. And I remember just like, and our owner was like, yeah, we stay open till 4. Like, it doesn't matter how dead it is. People need to know that when they show up there, it's going to be open. And then they started getting a little more lenient, and our manager, who would leave at like 11, would be like, listen, if it's dead at 2, start closing up, you know? And if no one's here by 2:30, close up at 2:30. And be like, all right. So, dude, at 1:30, you would be like, have 8 people in there, and you'd start cleaning it up. And you'd like, now I'm 44, and I'm thinking back, I'm like, 1:30? I was fucking like, that was like 2.5 hours till close. So, like, you would sit there and you'd start cleaning, because you would never packed at like 1:30. If you were, you'd be stoked. You're like, whatever, I'm making money. And you'd start cleaning up, and you had 2 wells, so you'd have a whole well broken down, all your bottles cleaned, everything was ready to go. And then everybody would filter out by like 1:45, 2, and then you would just start cranking, and you'd have the place ready to go. And you'd be like turning lights out, and you'd see people coming around that corner of the front window at 2:30 to come in, and you were like, fuck, because now you got to make drinks for these people and hang out till they want to leave. But, you know, sometimes I've had episodes that were like short, like 30 minutes, 45 minutes. But I look at that dude, and I was like, you weren't putting everything into it. And if I'm going to do something that's going to take time away from other stuff that I am putting everything into it, I got to be doing everything to make it the best for you and the best for me. So I really love all of you that listen every week, and I'm appreciative that you're there, and I'm appreciative that you've tuned in, because I'll be straight up, there were a lot of people that were Crab Feast fans that completely just bounced on me. And I get it. So we got like about 4 more episodes together. It's you and me. Let me know what you'd like to talk about, and I'll crush for you guys the last 4 weeks. I appreciate you. You can always email me. If you have ideas for other podcast ideas, please hit me up. I love you guys, and I hope everyone is staying healthy and safe. Peace.